Hello and welcome. This is Heavy Business. I'm Aaliyah,
I'm Curtis.
and we are here today with Tommy Victor of Prong, who is on tour with Danzig right now and making some time for us. Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm sorry I'm late on it. Really appreciate you guys doing this.
Oh, of course. We're excited to have you on the podcast and excited to talk about your new album that's coming out. State of Emergency is coming out October 6th. You've released a few singles from it that are really awesome. Can you talk a little bit maybe about how has the promotion been different for this album as opposed to previous albums that you've had?
Ooh, I may get in trouble if I were really truthful about it.
Oh
Uh,
no, well,
all I
don't get
can
in
say is that
trouble.
uh, is well, Napalm bought out the label that we were signed to, which is Steamhammer, and they've picked and chose a couple of the artists that they want to bring out on Napalm. So having the Napalm team in America has been really great, and they've been amazing. Europe is covered fantastic with the Steamhammer SPV people, but it's been fantastic having the Napalm people here. So having a label helps. It definitely does.
So actually, you've released albums with a lot of different labels over the past. You've been in Prong since the 80s, and 89, I think, was the first full-length album. So what is it that you look for from a label as someone that's an experienced musician, experienced in the industry? What are the things that you look for from a label?
Well, it's changed. Years ago,
Okay.
we started out by ourselves, and we had a couple of independent records, and then we got signed to a major label, and they were just a bank. I mean, they would give you tour support back in the day, pay for videos, have unbelievable street teams in every city in America. It was a different time, pre-internet. So now,
Sure.
I mean, the record label could do so much nowadays. I mean, we're talking about if you sold 50,000 records years ago, that was kind of crap. Now that's good. So it's a whole different thing. I mean, record label, that means you're supposed to be selling records. How much do you really sell these days? I mean, I know there's a lot of bands now that are popular and the repackaging, et cetera, with the vinyl explosion has helped, but um, the labels have gotten smaller. There's less people. It's less big business. Everything, the money comes from streaming. Unfortunately, rock bands or bands like Prong at this level, we're not going to get that much money from streaming. So I'm actually personally shocked at how much they do now in these labels, considering how little records are being sold. Uh, and for rock bands, the small amount of streaming numbers compared to R&B artists that you get. But um, I think mainly the label is coordinating album covers, uh, well, with our help, uh, dealing with the factories, getting the physical product made, dealing with the streaming services. That includes for video distribution and a press department as well, marketing, placing ads. I think I've covered it all with that.
And they help with the touring setups and stuff, I assume, right?
Not well on this level that much. Uh, that's something that they don't do that much with. At least our label. Um, they may do a couple of things here and there, but not like it used to be, where you get a whole bunch of posters and every show would be postered and for an upcoming album. That seems to have gone to the wayside as well.
So are there like principles or practices that you think have kind of gone by the wayside that maybe shouldn't have gone by the wayside that bands could still use to promote their music in a beneficial way?
Well, somebody like Prong, years ago, before grunge came in, we were able to get on the radio a lot more, but that's a long time ago. Radio promotion is something I still think is important. If you notice, the bands that do really well, they're on rock radio. And when you're on a label that doesn't have the budget to spend on radio promotion, you sort of suffer for that a little bit. So I just wish that we were able to have the benefits of major labels, et cetera, that we could get radio promotion. Um, but they have the radio promotion team that deal, I guess, with internet radio, etc. And then, like, like you made a great point about tour support. I think that it's always good to get sent a whole. I used to love that, getting a whole sent a bunch of posters, and we'll post to the venue ourselves. Uh, but yeah, they coordinating in stores, things like that. They don't seem to do that much as they used to years ago.
What about things like videos? Because I mean, obviously, when you guys started, that was probably like one of the most potent promotional tours. Do you think, or tours, items? Do you think that's still a necessary thing to get your music out there?
I think so. I think it's not as bombastic as it used to be, like you said, with MTV Headbangers Ball, and then there was alternative versions of that on MTV where people would tune in and get an idea what was going on out there. Um, Even back in the day in New York, there was an ultra high frequency station called U68, which is like a metal uh, show on like channel 68 on ultra high frequency, on rabbit ears. And that was a great way to see what was going on. There was a lot of metal on that. And there was also other shows like the Uncle Floyd show that were on ultra high frequency that they would show videos, etc. But no, I mean it's not as big as a tool as it was. You have to put out lyric videos. Where it's being shown, I don't know. I would like it. It's another thing too, where if they were part of some kind of network that uh, expose the videos more. It's just, where does it get played now? Where do people go to just see the videos? So the budget for these things have decreased considerably. I mean, years ago we got ripped off. I mean, you'd spend $50,000 on a video, and and you'd have to pay for it. That's why I never recouped from Epic Records, which was Sony, and
Mhm.
because of the money spent on tour support, videos, the amount of money spent on that stuff years ago, basically because it was important. You get a video that was played on MTV, your record sales will go up. But now I don't know where it's shown. I mean, you do. We've done three lyric videos, no, two lyric videos and a regular video for this new Prong record. So I'm happy about that. I mean, that's the thing with Napalm, what they've done, where they have a method where they put out singles early before the record release on a schedule, and I think that's fantastic. I think that's great. Where we have three taste of the record before it actually released. That's on Spotify and all streaming services, and the videos wherever they're shown. I mean, I don't know where they go. I mean, but they're out there.
You bring up something that I actually wanted to ask you about, the single strategy. So nowadays it's all in advance, but back in the 90s and 80s, it used to be during the after the album released, there would be singles released and stuff as well. So can you kind of maybe explain the benefits and the drawbacks of that? Because personally, I don't think it would be a problem doing that nowadays, because you'd think it would just keep the promotion going. But kind of curious of your thoughts since you've dealt with this.
What I've been told, and it's a great question, and we come from an era where that made sense, where you could put out a record, then do more promotion, keep it going. I mean, the longevity of these records, they don't last that long. You put out a record, it's sort of splashes in the first week or two, and then it's sort of, yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it's gone already. We live in a disposable society. If the records, they're on a couple of weeks on all new metal or something like that, some kind of playlist on Spotify, and then it's gone. So they like to make a big splash, get all their pre-orders. That affects the charting. I think that's important for the smaller labels to have an identity through having records that are charting high, and I think that's important for them. So uh, people to get the pre-orders of the packaging, get a view of what the record looks like, the different options on the packaging now, where we have there's three different versions of our album, where there's the poor short term, but the generic one, which is the black vinyl, that's available worldwide. In Europe, there's a red splatter. and then Napalm in America put out a gold splatter one. So, for the real Uber fan, they're going to want to buy all of them. So they want to see all that before the record comes out, make the pre-orders, buy them. And that all affects charting now with the pre-orders. So I think that's the strategy where it's got to hit in the first week. And then after that, it's like, well, if the band tours or whatever after that, fine, but they're not really worried about it that much.
If I could go back, it's probably not super relevant to artists today, but I'm curious, what was the story, how you got signed to your first label, and throughout you did the demos and then you got signed. So what was that process like?
Well, the benefit of Prong is I worked at a club. I worked at CBGB in New York. I was a sound guy there. So I was really part of the scene. And I was part of the scene before that. I lived it back then. If you wanted to make it, you sort of became like a bum. You're like, you worked in the music business and you got in part of the scene. We all Lower East Side of Manhattan. You can afford an apartment down there back then. So everyone was trying to immerse themselves into the scene down there. So that given labels that were attracted to what was going on the scene. So it didn't take Prong very long to get a lot of attention. So even after a couple of shows, um, we decided to put out a record, and it was selling like crazy. Like we made it ourselves, and we were selling it to the physical product just in Manhattan itself. Like this is how things have changed. I mean, there was a store, Bleecker Bob's, the famous record store in the Village, and we keep going over there. It's like, you got more records. We physically carry them over there. It's like, we need 200 more. We need, other stores are like, we need 400 more. It's like, how are we going to keep pressing these things? So then we sold that record to Southern Studios, which is like Discord Records, and they were able to more mass produce it. By the time you knew it, I mean, we were selling 25,000 records. So like when the EP came out. I mean, the first album, like you mentioned, in '89, which was still on an indie, was on Relativity Records. Like it came out of the box, it was sold 15,000 right that first week, and then that attracted. We're playing gigs locally. We didn't do anything outside of New York, and then finally we went over to Europe. We did shows over there, and that even created more interest from labels. Everybody wanted to sign us after about 2 years. And then, unfortunately, we did sign to a major label. I think it would have been better if we stuck to a big indie like Roadrunner, but we did sign to Epic. They finally came to see a show, like some of the big shots at the label, and were convinced after seeing the show that they wanted to sign us, and that was it.
You say unfortunately. So what's the big difference between a big
Because
indie and a major label?
well, especially a metal label like Roadrunner, they know what record stores to hit. They knew where to market it at. Like a major label, they're interested in selling like Michael Jackson records. They're on this George Michael and Michael Jackson and Boy George mentality back then. They weren't. It's like, who is this rock band? Like, or there was the hair metal things we were selling huge amounts, like Firehouse and whoever, the Rat and those bands. Uh, that's what they were concerned about. Something that didn't really fit in, like Prong. I don't know, a major label was really ever the best place for it. They had marketing problems. Eventually, they had to sort of market us. They figured out a way to market us into the metal audience, and although Prong was never really strictly a metal band, we sort of came out of like the indie and like punk rock scene in Manhattan, and then we sort of put metal into it. They figured out a way to try to market it that way. Pushead doing the cover, who did Metallica covers, but yeah, they always struggled with marketing Prong, a major label at that time. So, and then it was hard to get on the radio. I mean, a lot of major label artists are it's all radio rock. Like if it's not the hit on the radio, then they're like, well, we're not going to promote if they don't get any radio action, they're not going to promote the record neither. The whole label decides they're just going to put an end to it. You know, they're not going to continue promoting it.
Yeah, that all makes sense. And I do think that all of that, all of that stuff you just talked about, there is a parallel to the music world today. Like
Okay.
playing your local scene and becoming a part of your local scene, it is still a thing today, I think.
Okay,
Um,
good.
and like sticking with the biggest thing that you can get that still specializes in your music is also relevant. So that's really
Yeah.
interesting to hear that it's been that way, really, and it's just stayed that way.
It's unfortunate for bands today. I mean, because you do have the internet and YouTube and like the access to the bands through people without actually attending shows. Back then, you didn't. There was no other way. You'd have to go
True, true.
to right. You'd have to be in their face, like, and there was a lot more club. There was a plethora of clubs to play all the time. Like it was crazy, you know. So I feel bad for bands today. They're under a lot more pressure to get that. I think that the band's image and their look, and that's why you have the bands that are wearing masks and have this crazy image now is important, so they get attention. Otherwise, it's just like, oh, who are these guys? They're just average looking dudes, you know. So for internet, for things like that, I think I think that the appearance of the band is more important these days.
That's true. Do you think that touring has become less important as well, or
I
just harder?
don't. You know what? I'll just go from my own experience. Like we toured and toured and toured and went, and especially outside of the East Coast of New York, from New York and like DC, Boston, Albany, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, that Detroit. As soon as we got out of that, Baltimore, as soon as we got out of that, it was always really difficult for us. Like we'd go out there and like there'd be no one at the shows. It was really, we kept plugging at it, getting on tours, going out there and hitting these places. And until our records got on the, like, Snap Your Finger, Snap Your Neck, got on MTV and got radio airplay, it was hard breaking those places. So I the power of getting on, like, now on a playlist on one of the programmers for that, or they like you up there and it creates some interest. That's uh that's I think that's almost more important than going out there and killing yourself touring, is somehow like bribing people to get on one of these playlists somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I don't honestly know how people do that. We've had some people talk about Spotify playlisting and how to get on there, but it's I haven't figured, I haven't cracked that code.
Yeah, no, it's a mystery. And actually, I've heard two different stories. Like I had a manager that was working at Spotify, and he's like, "There's 170." I'm trying to make it his German accent, but there's 170 programmers, and it's like, and it's all based on algorithms, and like the popularity is dictated by the public. And then I've heard the complete opposite, where there's only two guys doing most of the rock playlists, and they just do whatever the hell they want. They don't even, they're not looking at algorithms. It's just a favoritism thing. So I've heard both sides of it.
So
What the
you guys,
truth is, I don't know.
I have to wrap pretty quick because I have something coming at my house in a
Okay,
moment
Curtis.
here.
Okay.
Have to wrap. Sorry, guys.
Um, how much time do we have, Curtis?
Probably about 30 seconds. I just got a notification someone's going to be at the door.
Oh,
All right,
geez.
Curtis.
All right. Well, Tommy, go ahead and plug your record that's coming out for us.
Well, it's called State of Emergency. It's on SPV, Steamhammer in Europe, and it's distributed by Napalm in America. And it's a killer new record. It's our 13th record, and you can check out our video for The Descent. Now it's pretty heavy, hard hitting, good New York record. Well, everything written by me in New York, back in New York after years in LA, and it's pretty slamming.
That is awesome. Yeah, I've loved the single so far. So everybody make sure to check out this album. And Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Tommy.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate your help. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. And everyone listening, thank you for listening. And until next time, make like a bull and throw those